Start the recording. So, welcome everybody to today's onboarding session. I'm Andreas Willich. I'm the community manager of SpecFlow, and I will guide you today through this. Yeah, it's a hands-on session. So, idea is I show you the stuff, and you do it together with me. Please use, if you have questions, the Q&A tool from Zoom for questions. Somewhere down there is some Q&A button. It makes it easier for me to follow up on questions that I see what I already answered. I will try to answer them if they are relevant to the current task at once. If not, we have an Q&A section at the end of the stuff, of the step-by-step guide. Yeah, I will answer them all others. At the end of the webinar, if you leave, there will be a short survey. Would be cool if you could fill it out to improve our webinars and tools. Before we start, I have a question to you. So I'm launching a poll. I would like to know if you have used SpecFlow before. Makes it easier for me that I know how the audience is, how much in detail I have to go or not. Good, nearly 50-50. We're using SpecFlow before or not. Good. Let's get started. So what I'm doing, so I shared this in the chat with you. I'm going through our getting started step-by-step guide, and I have here a clean virtual machine, Windows 10 with Visual Studio 2019 installed. And the first thing you do when you start with working with SpecFlow is to install our Visual Studio extension. To this, there are only 3-4 steps needed. We start Visual Studio, say continue without code. We don't want yet to create the project. We only need Visual Studio. Remove this. And to install with the SpecFlow extension for Visual Studio is like any other Visual Studio extensions, manage extensions, go online, search for SpecFlow, and then you select the SpecFlow for Visual Studio 2019 and press download, and then it gets installed. And we once have to restart Visual Studio that the extension is really installed. We also support Visual Studio 2017, so if you're in 2017, you get a see then SpecFlow for Visual Studio 2017. So we have a question from Alex. Is there an extension for VS Code? No, we don't have yet, or we don't have a Visual Studio extension. But we did, because we getting this asked a lot. We created documentation how to use sorry, how to still use Visual Studio Code to work with SpecFlow. There are already some extensions available that covers a lot of features, and I shared this in the chat with you. There we have installation, how you do the test execution and debugging. So we added 2 weeks ago, we added this documentation. So in the meantime, the extension is installed. And let's start Visual Studio again. And to quickly check that the extension is really installed, let's jump again in extension, manage extensions, installed, and then we have here SpecFlow Visual Studio 2019. Good. And yeah, I know. So, and this is important because this makes us now creating a new project much easier, because in this extension, we have a project template. So here in this create new project template, you see it already here. We have SpecFlow projects, it's new. And with that, we can then create our SpecFlow project. But before we are doing this, we need, before we can write this, we need something to test. And for that, let's create a simple class library. We call it SpecFlow calculator. We take a .NET Core 3.1 long-term support. There are also others here for the class library from Visual Studio. We're also using .NET Core 3.1 today, but SpecFlow can support up to .NET 5. So it's only we're doing this in .NET Core 3.1 because that's the current LTS version from Microsoft. So now we have a normal project, and let's add our application logic. We want to test a calculator which has two properties: first number, second property, and we have here an add method, which at the moment throws only a not implemented exception. That's okay. Good. Short reminder, please use the Q&A tool for questions. Good. And this is now, well, let's build this. And I shared this code with you in the chat that you don't have to type it all. And you're a little quicker. Build was successful. I'll give you a moment to catch up. Good. And as now we have a system under a subject under test. Let's create now a SpecFlow project. Go to the solution, say add new project. Now we select our SpecFlow project template. Give it a name. That's SpecFlow calculator.specs. Always do this .specs for the project. Say create. Now we get a custom wizard from us, but you get through the extension where you can again select the .NET frameworks version. So everything what we are supporting is here to select. So select the framework you're using. And in our case, we'll stick to .NET Core 3.1. But having for .NET 5, it's selecting here .NET 5 and everything is working. You can also select here the test framework. As default is our SpecFlow Plus Runner, but we also support XUnit, NUnit, and MS Test. And we are in the SpecFlow team are fans of the Fluent Assertions library. We will be using this. And so we will say, okay, yeah, add this library. It's a really cool library to write assertions. And yeah, I will show it to you later. So let's create this project. And Visual Studio takes some time to download dependencies. When we have a look at here at the Solution Explorer, got a little more stuff created than usual. So when we look at the dependencies, what packages do we have? We have Fluent Assertions, we have the .NET Test SDK, this is needed. And then we have the SpecFlow Plus Living Doc plugin from the start. I'll show this also later to you. And here's the SpecRun SpecFlow, the SpecFlow Plus Runner package on files. We have here feature file where then our scenarios are, as we're doing calculate. This example is this is a calculator example. Okay, Luis, screen solution. I'm only on 1080p, so this should wrong window. So at 1080p, I can try to increase the font size here, 150. Luis, is this better? Good. Where was it? Yeah, feature file with our scenario about this calculator. So we given the first number is 50, second number is 70. We add this number and then the result should be. And we also have some test step class where we already have the bindings from there, but to that later. First, let's build the stuff. Still successful. And when we have now look at the test explorer, we see that we have our first scenario here. Cool. Let's run this and see what's happening. So, and we see nothing is happening. So what is happening here? It's blue. So we're using the SpecFlow Plus runner, and it's free. So in the past we had license costs, but it's not free. The only thing you need to do is you need to have a SpecFlow Plus, a SpecFlow account. And you have to switch here in the output window to test. When you have a look at the output here, you have here checking activation, SpecFlow Plus run, please sign in for your free SpecFlow account and have this big link. And when you press Control and click on this, browser is opening for activation of your PC. So give it a moment. Okay. Rendering issue of the virtual machine. It's already there here. You get a welcome screen for SpecFlow Plus account. You can use at the moment a Microsoft account, can be a corporate or personal account. I'm using here my corporate account. And as it's a corporate account, it wants two-factor authentication. So let's do this quickly. And we are done. And now, as you see here, we can switch back and execute the tests. What I couldn't show you, because I already have a SpecFlow Plus account, is here, if you don't have yet any, after you sign in, you get this permission requests that we can get the minimal data. So first name, last name, email address. That's what we are asking. More details in our privacy policy. You accept, and then you get a additional step with some additional information we would like to know from you. And that's it. Activated here. And when we now switch back in Visual Studio, when we run this here, we see that they are yellow. Yeah. And what does this mean? Let's have a look and look at the output of this result. And what we see is here is, okay, we have some output. And then we have given the first number is 50. So from our scenario here, what is executed. But we get here the message pending, calculated step definition given the first number is 50. And then the rest is skipped because of previous error. And that's the part where it's now about bindings. And bindings is the glue code between what you have here in your scenario and what you automate. You can use Selenium for your automation, Appium for your mobile stuff, or directly call the APIs you would like to test. And yeah, what you can do is they are already for this feature file, we already generated them here, so they are there. And there is through the Visual Studio extension, we have also navigation here. So we can here press in the context menu, go to definition or F12, and we jump immediately to the binding method. And this is a normal .NET method, also with a parameter we have here. And the special thing is here is this attribute where we have this string, and this is a regular expression which gets matched with this here. So put them side by side. Let's explore away. So this is got to the runtime, and then in the we match this regular expression. We know because of this here, it's a parameter, and then we execute this method. So this attribute is important, and also this binding attribute at top is important that SpecFlow finds these bindings. And yeah, we only have it as a pending implementation, so it's not really implemented. Let's implement it. So remove the commands. So we want to automate test this class. Let's fix the file name first. We have it here on the right side. So we need the calculator. So first we need to add a project reference. And then we can say here, and this works, what I'm doing now works in this simple case. We can make now a normal field here and already instantiate it in this class, because it's such a simple project. If you have a more complicated project, you probably need to set up more stuff and so on. But for this simple case, it's only here. It can say calculator, first number equals number. And then we build this, succeeded, and run this. We see, okay, it's still yellow. And when you have a look at the output, you see, okay, the first step is done. And then we have the second with pending. Good. So let's bind the rest of the steps and get this test finally working. So given second number is calculator, second number equals number. And you see we also do type conversion. So it's a string in the feature file and here in an int. For the when, this is a little bit more tricky because we have calculator and this add method. And perhaps you notice it. This doesn't save any state. This returns the result. So we have to write our bindings that way. So, and also again, in this simple case, we can use again a field to save this intermediate result, where we can then later make our validation. And this is what we do in the 10th step. And here we were using fluent assertions. So for that, I'm adding the namespace. Now I can say result. I always make this. This is, let's rename this. I want to rename it. And this is our actual result. That's what we get. And from the method here's parameter, this is our expected result. Now we can, now better to read, so we can say actual result dot. And because of fluent assertions, we got some extension methods. Here this should, this is our entry point, and now we can say our actual result should be expected result. Nice. Let's build this. We implemented now all our steps. And when we run this, we'll see that the scenario is failing. It's red. So why it's red? Let's have a look. Yeah. Method operation is not implemented. That's because of this here. So we can also jump in the test explorer here. And this is, let's quickly implement this first number plus second number and run. And it's green. And we have automated our first scenario. In the output, we see all the steps done. Cool. What I also wanted to show you is how you create new bindings. So these were all already created. And for that, let's add a second scenario, and let's add a scenario to subtract the two numbers. Let's add a new feature to the calculator. I share this also in chat with you. And it's similar to the add, but it's given first number, second number. Then we say the two numbers are subtracted, and then the result should be. And you see there's not a difference in the color. This is purple. So bindings are global. You define it once, and in your whole project, it's the same. And so these bindings are already there. And only this new one, when the two numbers are subtracted, is missing. And how do we create this binding now? Multiple ways. In the context menu, you have this generate step definitions window where you can generate it. Or you can simply, when you say go to definition, you get a pop-up with the skeleton code. And we're using this. And let's add this here. And now we also need to implement it. So it's actual result equals calculator subtract. And we need this method, create it. Let's jump there. Before we implement it, let's see that our test is failing. Always check that your test is failing before. Yeah, not implemented. And then we can say return first number minus second number. So generated, run, and both are green. So we automated our second scenario with SpecFlow. It's not that many steps needed to do this. One last thing I wanted to show you. Now this is the automation part, and you have here your feature files, but they are in Visual Studio, they're in your source control. You want to share this with the rest of your team, and would like to show you an option how to do this. And for that, we created a product called SpecFlow plus Living Doc. It's all about living documentation and repo generation. And this, generates a nice HTML file for you. First thing what we need to do is we need to install it. This is done on the command line. It's a .NET tool. And installed with .NET tool, install -- global and SpecFlow plus Living Doc CLI. And I have it already installed here. then let's update it to the latest version. Nice. So and what we can do now is, let's open here this specs folder. So we need to go in the output directory here. Let's switch there to the command line. And then you have this living doc parameter support command available after the installation. And we can say, in our case, we make test assembly, SpecFlow calculator.specs DLL, and to get test results, we say -t test execution JSON. And then we create this. Here in the background, you already see there's a living doc HTML now. Should be finished any moment. No. Finished. Let's have a look. You have here the living doc generated. You have here your feature files. You see it here. Now we can render. We have here Markdown in the feature description. This is now rendered properly. The test execution results. And you have also some analytics functionality here. It's quite handy. Good. And that's what I wanted to show you today. So let's switch back to the slides. And before we start with the Q&A session, I have one last question for you, and we would like to know where you heard about SpecFlow. So if you could quickly answer this, it's always interesting to hear this. Good. Yeah, a lot of word of mouth. We noticed this. Please also spread it to the next colleagues that SpecFlow is here. I share the results quickly with you. Yeah, thank you. Good. Let's go to the Q&A. I see there one question from Kenneth. Any experience with getting SpecFlow to work with .NET 5 Windows? It should work, except one small issue. There is some small issue with the SpecFlow Plus runner with .NET 5. As far as I'm aware, I have to check the status of it, but the rest, it's working. And if not, please open issue or support ticket. We have tests running for that, and yeah, this should work. So also a good point to show you, share some links with you. It's already on the next slide. So the recording, yeah, Kenneth, you can get it up and running with MS Test instead of the SpecFlow Plus runner. It's only in the SpecFlow Plus runner with this new TFM, if I remember correctly. So some links. So one thing is our community forum, where discussion happens, and there's general discussion about all the stuff about SpecFlow, and you have here the feature request where you can upvote or create new feature requests for SpecFlow. because of that, also we are currently working on a Rider, JetBrains Rider extension. And the next thing we are working is having screenshots in Living Doc. And you can also here, you need a SpecFlow account. You can also submit a request to create a support ticket, or you go on GitHub page on SpecFlow and open here an issue if you have anything. And yeah, and the recording of this webinar goes up on our YouTube channel. And it's not only the record, there are also the recordings of last webinars and our product webinars there, and additional content. So subscribe to get notifications when we upload new videos. Good. Another question, does SpecFlow scale to do distributed testing across multiple machines? No, SpecFlow doesn't do that, because that's one, we think this is one layer above SpecFlow. So we are integrating in the .NET testing framework. So and in this whole .NET testing ecosystem with VS Test, .NET Test, VS Test Console Exe. So they are standards, and we are implementing this, and so we are doing with XUnit, NUnit, and MS Test. And for running this, it's not a SpecFlow scenario is the same like an XUnit, NUnit, MS Test. So and this is all executed by runners one layer above SpecFlow. I know there is in Azure DevOps, there's this VS Test task to execute stuff, also execute run the tests. And as far as I remember, there are some VS Test has the capabilities to spread this out over multiple machines and distribute it there. There were a better, give me a moment, I'm looking into Azure DevOps. So pipelines, new pipeline, classic editor, continue, empty job. So VS Test. They have some options to advanced execution, batch test, and they have to batch this about over multiple agents and everything there. So SpecFlow not by itself, but we integrate all the known all the stuff that's already there in the .NET ecosystem, so you can use that. Hope this answered your question. Cool. Good. Which other question can I answer you? It was in the Q&A tool, I think. Also no one in chat. So then that was a quick one. So if you got questions afterwards, post it in the community forum. I should post the link in the chat with you. Also to the YouTube channel. Post it there. I and the team are watching this, so you will get an answer from us or from some other community members. I'm also on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Follow me there. SpecFlow.org. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn. Follow us also there to get the latest news of new features and everything what we are doing. And with that, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, or you can go sleep. And yeah, I hope perhaps I see you in the next product webinar, what will happen end on April. Good, and bye.